So you're in the market for a large Japanese-built luxury vehicle that can fit 3 rows of passengers. And up until now, your options have been body-on-frame SUVs like the Infiniti QX80 and Lexus LX. Up until now, that is, because this is the Lexus TX filling a void in the luxury space. Specifically, this is the 2025 Lexus TX 350 F Sport all-wheel drive. Now, this is a unibody crossover. Big difference over those body-on-frame SUVs, because unlike those that have a lot more off-road prowess and a little bit more geared towards people that like hard riding vehicles that have all the luxury features and can do off-roading, this vehicle is a lot better suited for families, people who just want to be driving along the road and don't necessarily need to worry about off-road. So we're going to be going over what you need to know about the Lexus TX, how it compares to its sister vehicle, the Toyota Grand Highlander that I featured last year, and everything else about how this stacks up in the competition space. Now, Lexus currently offers 3 different engine configurations for the TX. This is more of the entry-level version, the TX 350, with a 2.4-liter 4-cylinder turbo engine, producing 275 horsepower, 317 pound-feet of torque, with an 8-speed sequential shift transmission and all-wheel drive. But you do have the option for front-wheel drive in the US. Now, how does the engine compare to the Toyota Grand Highlander? It's more or less the same engine, but it does produce 10 more horsepower and 17 more pound-feet of torque. Now, our Lexus TX is more or less identical in terms of dimensions to the Grand Highlander. This being more luxury-oriented, the design is quite different, with the adopted Lexus design language up front being the biggest differentiator. We have full LED exterior lighting, and our F Sport package gives us more sportier appearance, both front and back, as well as along the sides. Now, the ride is also a little different compared to the Grand Highlander, as well as other TX models, as this is the F Sport version. We have the F Sport tuned independent McPherson solenoid activated shock absorbers up front, as well as the rear with gas pressurized shocks. So you do have a slightly different ride on this. It's not an air ride suspension, but it is different from the other TX models as well as the Grand Highlander, giving you a slightly better ride on the road and more quieter too with the extra sound insulation on this vehicle. So at about $83,000 Canadian, I'd say that this Lexus TX 350 is pretty affordable. When you compare it directly to the most comparable Toyota Grand Highlander, which would be the limited all-wheel drive, that comes in at about $60,000. Now, obviously, you get more prestige when it comes to the Lexus. You have more features and a little bit more luxury, so there's a good difference to go up to this vehicle over that. But when you compare it to other luxury vehicles, despite being in the full-size crossover segment, this is actually more in line with a BMW X5 or a Mercedes-Benz GLE. So the GLS, the full-size, and the BMW X7 don't really compare to this. Those are much longer vehicles. However, I'd say that this is a lot more affordable. If you were to build up a Mercedes GLE 350, it's going to be closer to the $100,000 mark. And then even with a BMW X5 xDrive 40i, you know, when you get all the features and everything that this car has, it's pushing that $100,000 price point. So you're getting a luxury class vehicle for, you know, luxury price money, but not quite as much as the Germans. And typically, Lexus is pretty reliable. The second row passengers have a tri-zone automatic climate control system with the S-Flow mode, which allows the vehicle to automatically detect if there are passengers in the different seats, and it'll only allow airflow to those seats that are occupied. We have heated and ventilated captain's chairs back here, which is a nice plus. There are still some vehicles that cost way more than this that do not offer that. Our center console, while it is kind of low, does have configurable cup holders. You can remove them and place one or none, but the entire tray can be removed as well. So if you want easier access to the third row from the center of the vehicle, you can do that. The second row seats do pop out of the way to make it easier to get into the third row, and passengers back there do have air vents as well as cup holders and USB-C ports. Plus, the rear seats do have a reclining option because the third row is power folding, meaning you can do it from the front seats. The driver can control it through the infotainment system, as well as from the trunk. The back passengers can also adjust their recline. So if you're not quite fitting in terms of height, you can recline the seat back, you know, pretty good ways to be able to fit a little bit better. Plus, if you do have passengers back there and they want to relax and you don't have anything in the trunk, go ahead, why not, right? It's good to have the feature. Up front, things are very familiar to the Grand Highlander if you watched our video on that. We have the 12.3-inch driver cluster, the 14-inch infotainment system running the current version of the Lexus Toyota software, which works very well. It features things like wireless Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, 360-degree cameras, as well as a pretty good automatic parking system. In fact, I wanted to see how good it worked, so I tried it out myself, and it did work. You have the option to pick a number of different parking spots that it detects, and it will perpendicularly park on its own. I thought it was quite good. Other features that we have are the digital rear view mirror, and that camera is located inside the cabin behind the rear glass. So it is a little easier to clean off because you can just wipe away with your wiper blade rather than it being outside and exposed to the elements during the winter. We have a head-up display, 21 speaker Mark Levinson audio system, and as I mentioned, second row seats have heat and ventilation, so do the front. You have 2-stage heated steering wheel options, so different temperatures, 3 options for the driver memory, as well as this large panoramic sunroof. Aside from that, the interior is quite luxurious. Everything is pretty much soft material. We do have a little bit of Alcantara throughout, mostly leather, and it works out very well. But now comes the time that everybody gets excited about. It's time to take the 2025 Lexus TX 350 all-wheel drive on the road to tell you how this vehicle performs, if you should go up to the F Sport version for this engine, and why you might want to consider this over the other German competition. All right, we're on the road now in the Lexus. Let's talk about fuel efficiency. Again, this is the non-hybrid version. We completed our 100-kilometer test loop in eco mode in 9.1 liters per 100 kilometers, which is actually really good for a 3-row vehicle. But then it's really good compared to the Grand Highlander, because with that one we had the hybrid max engine, which actually did 9.7 liters per 100 kilometers, so it wasn't as efficient. Now, I try to mention this as often as possible without being boring for those of you who watch our show regularly. Our test loop, the 100 kilometers that I test every single vehicle I drive on, is mostly highway. It's about 85% highway, and then you've got like the rest of it almost completely country roads, so you're still doing a pretty good speed, and then there's like 2 to 3% in the city. So it's not really great for a hybrid. It's just, that's how it works, unfortunately. So when it comes to that, that's why we always say that that number doesn't really matter to you, but it matters to how it compares to the other vehicles that we've tested. So yes, this engine is more efficient on the highway, but I would have definitely taken at least the hybrid when it comes to in-town stuff, which is most of what I do here day to day. I would be saving some fuel because now, you know, we're obviously spending a little bit more than we were before when it comes to the overall fuel economy testing on this. So keep that in mind. But I want to talk about the ride, the drive, the performance, the handling, everything that comes with this vehicle, because it has been excellent. You know, I love Lexus vehicles. They're very comfortable. And then especially a big one like this, you definitely feel like you are riding on a cloud. Seat comfort, as I mentioned, the second row is really good. For me, though, as a big guy, as a tall guy, I do find that I sit a little too high up. And that is akin to pretty much all of the Lincoln vehicles that I drive. I feel that the Lincolns, the seats are just installed a little bit higher up than I would like. Maybe the floor is a little raised, whatever it may be. I find them very close to the headliner here. Yeah, I've got maybe like, and I'm sitting upright, like that's a quarter of an inch, half an inch, maybe at the very most. So I do sit very high up. The bolstering is a little too firm for me with these F Sport seats. So just something to consider. I mean, you know, everybody's different. And I always say too, we have a lot of people that comment, and I love hearing from you. You know, and I love hearing when people say, hey, you know, I kind of have the same body size as you, man. How do you fit? I'm going to fit differently. Even if we're looking the same, trust me, it's going to be different for everybody. So you definitely want to try these vehicles out for yourself. Figure out how you fit, get into them, check out your bum. Because, you know, I'm seated in a very high up position. I find that the steering wheel is just a little too close to my legs, but that's more of a me problem. The rest of the vehicle comfort, though, has been great. Overall ride is good. The quietness, too. I mean, you know, we try to do some sound deadening. We have software that eliminates some of the road noise so that you can hear us better when we're filming. I almost don't need it for this car. That's how quiet it is. And even the performance, too. I mean, we're doing a little under the speed limit, actually. So let's say somebody's getting upset that I'm going slower. If I put it down, I mean, I have no problems getting up to speed. I'm perfect, right? So yeah, okay, maybe you add 6 adults and some cargo into it, might feel a little sluggish, but for the most part, I think that the power to weight ratio on this vehicle is good. And again, the fuel efficiency is kind of what's key, right? You know, we're talking about this all the time now here on Test Drive. The vehicles that we're driving today have smaller engines, smaller displacements, less cylinders, all for fuel efficiency. And I do prefer driving these smaller engines because I don't tow, even though this vehicle does have the tow package, but I don't have a trailer, I don't have a camper, I never use that stuff. We've got 3 people in the vehicle at the most, maybe some luggage if we go on a vacation. That's about it. So I don't need a big, powerful engine that's just going to waste gas. I like fuel efficiency, and this has been great. Even going over rough train tracks, look, barely felt it. Excellent. So the ride on here is really good. That's one of the reasons why you'll want to go up to the F Sport. Yeah, you're going to be paying a little bit more. Yeah, you get all the features. Maybe the look isn't quite for you. Yeah, I think that the vehicle looks quite handsome. Not everybody agrees. You know, when it comes to the new design language from Lexus, it's very aggressive compared to Lexus vehicles of old, which were a whole lot more conservative. But I think it's good. I think it's good for them to try new things and branch out. And, you know, Lexus has been a very popular brand over the last 30 years here in Canada, so it continues to be with these vehicles. I'm seeing tons of them. You know, this was a segment that Lexus did not have anything in. Everything was SUV based, whether it was the GX, which is a mid-size vehicle, or the LX, the full-size, both body on frame. It's not going to be for everybody. The ride is quite different. So if you want something that's a lot more comfortable, this is the way to go. Now, as I mentioned outside, this vehicle more or less compares to the BMW X5, Mercedes GLE. In terms of build quality, they are very, very close. You know, Germans do a great job when it comes to their overall build quality, and Lexus has been pretty much the same. They want to make sure that they're building a high quality vehicle. And I mean, I don't find anything that's negative about the interior here. Really just the armrest here is a little wobbly, but it does open up. It's got kind of like a, you know, a split design here, so both sides open independently. That's the only thing that kind of moves around a little bit more than I would like. But the rest of the vehicle here, no rattles, no creaks, nothing like that. Everything looks like it is built extremely well. So those are things that you're going to be looking for. I mean, if you're spending $80,000 or more on a vehicle like this, you want to make sure that it is built well. And I have no problems with it. And I mean, okay, we're losing it on physical buttons. It's not something that we like. So all of the HVAC controls or everything now inside the infotainment screen with the little knobs for your temperatures. It could be physical buttons, which we would prefer, but I mean, it's functional enough. You know, a lot of the important drive buttons are still there. So Lexus hasn't hidden everything inside the infotainment, but they are hiding a lot. Like your drive mode, for example, is within the infotainment system. Yes, you can just push the little 6 square button. You can get into easy access mode to get to your favorites. But again, I mean, I like buttons, and I think that we're going back in that direction. We've had a lot more vehicles released in the last, I'd say, year that are going back to having physical buttons. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot more. But I like this setup because it isn't too over the top. It isn't all screen. It isn't trying to make the screen the center of attention. The rest of the vehicle here is really the center of attention. The way it's designed, the way that the materials are all put together, and the way that it makes you feel when you're driving it in terms of the overall ergonomics and comfort. That's certainly key when it comes to the Lexus. So if you're getting tired of brands like Mercedes-Benz sticking an iPad in the middle and calling it a day, then Lexus has something a little different for you. The formula is working. This would definitely be a vehicle that I would consider. If I was a smaller man and I fit into the seat just a little bit better, then I would definitely be considering this. But just because I sit a little too high up, that's the only downside for me. That's about it. I mean, there's hard to say anything else that's negative about this vehicle. It's worked brilliantly. Maybe also the electronic door releases. You know, we're not big fans of those either. Something to consider. The battery dies, yes, you can pull them and they will open up for you, but it's a little different. Do we really need to reinvent that portion of the vehicle? You tell me. Let me know in the comments below, which is a great segue to making sure you subscribe to the channel and let us know what you think of the Lexus TX 350. Are you in the market for this vehicle? We do try to get back to everybody as quickly as possible, so let us know. Are you shopping this against things like the Mercedes GLE or BMW X5? Or do you think that this is something more like an Infiniti QX60 competitor, Acura MDX? I don't think so. I think that this does sit in a bigger segment that just doesn't really exist. So let me know in the comments below what you think about it. As always, we're here every single week, 3 episodes every week between myself, Victor, and James. So if you're looking for a new car, this is the place to come in. If you just want to hang out and see what we're doing, it's also a great place to do it too. But we appreciate you watching, and until next time, take care.